Okay, it's Friday. Let's talk about. I want to go back to bed, but it's so bright. It's hot. Camera tweak. I'm gonna make it a square aspect ratio. So right now I can see my hands, but I'm pretty sure I'll just be able to see my thumbs when I've cropped it properly. This is because I'm noticing on, I think it's Facebook, but it might also be YouTube. If I'm holding my phone, all of a sudden a lot of videos in vertical phone orientation take up like half the screen, so they're more square. And I'd heard rumors before about this being like a growing trend of having to shoot square, which is confusing a lot of camera people, because none of the, even the low level cameras, but none of the high level cameras can natively shoot square. Like you would have to crop it no matter what. You can't just pick square. I mean, like you can on an iPhone you can pick square and shoot a video in square, but on like a Red camera that's not a thing. I have a feeling sooner than later, as it gets more adopted, camera manufacturers are going to do firmware updates that will let you shoot in a square format, which will be lovely for me, because I have a Panasonic, which is a 4/3 native aspect ratio, which is closer to square than not. So I think, without doing the math, I think this camera in a square format compared to a 1080 widescreen format or a 4K widescreen format, I'll actually get more use out of the sense, like I'll have more pixels in the square than I will in the whatever the widescreen is. I forget. I think it's 1.66. Those numbers don't mean anything. So I'm doing square today. So yeah, it's super weird. People have also been talking about just putting their camera sideways to fill up the screen that way, because it is common knowledge that, especially on Instagram, that people just look at their phone like this. It's kind of inconvenient to do this. Even though like Netflix and Amazon forces you to go sideways, it's just, I think this is going to dominate because it's more ergonomic and it's just faster. You don't want to do this on the bus if you can have to. You want to do this, especially if you have a screen that's not tiny like mine. Square. So we're going to try square. We'll see how it goes. But yeah, a couple weeks ago, when YouTube first started doing it to me, because I watch a lot of YouTube on my phone, it freaked me out, because I was like, well, is there a glitch? Like, what is it cropping out on the sides? And then I look at it, and no, the native file is more square. So, as a big truck drives by. Did I write? Yeah. We did our room again, and we're finally making, we're chomping at the bit. I'm the one dragging us down, because I'm telling us to do unnecessary amounts of work before we start script writing, because we should. But we're almost at the script writing phase, so we're actually using brain muscles that feel like writing, which has been increasingly satisfying. So that's good. On top of that, I sat down and my like default writing that I try to do as much as I can, and lately I haven't been doing it at all, is free writing. I'll just sit down with a pad and paper and just see what's there. It's sort of like the meditation version of writing, and I tend to, if nothing else, it sort of like settles my head, but I tend to like what I make on the page. Yeah, so I did a bunch of that. I think I wrote like 20 pages of that over the course of a couple days. So yeah. did I read? I've been increasingly reading the trades again. And if you're a budding filmmaker, or if you're somebody who wants to be in the industry, you're expected to read all the trades all the time. So much so that you should have notifications on your phone when another article comes out, which I don't do. But I've been reading the trades, and it's been a while. It's been about 6 months since I've been properly reading the trades, and so I'm not back in I'm not sort of up to date, and I'm not in the language anymore, but it's useful. It's also incredibly discouraging because the more you read the trades, the more you can prove that Hollywood is based on fear decision making instead of optimism decision making. So that's something you got to deal with. And Me Too, and Me Too is happening, and it's good that Me Too is happening. I think Me Too may be the best thing that's ever happened to the industry, at least since the government forced studios to sell their movie theaters so they didn't have a monopoly, at least since that. But it's also just a huge bummer because people are suffering. So at some point it's not, it's getting under my skin now. Not out of fear, but out of like so many stories of suffering. So what did I watch this week? We're still just powering through the Big Brother season, 3 episodes a week. I'm surprised we haven't had a 4th episode in a week in a while, because they do that sporadically. But I think it's because the cast members keep, house guests, that's what the house guests keep screwing stuff up during the live show, and either the live show doesn't go long enough or it goes too long. And the live show last night, actually, they had to cut to a stock screen at least 4 times because people kept swearing on live TV. So it's just a mess. It's off the tracks. But I remember several weeks ago, the I don't know how to describe her. The girl who is a 24-year-old life coach. I think that's an appropriate way to describe her. That's her career. Place the judgment where you will. 24 years old, life coach. When she got eliminated, she had a battle back opportunity to get back into the house, and it sure seemed like the thing that they made her do wasn't rigged, but it was definitely, it would have been hard to fail at it because it was a 6-piece puzzle and she had like 2 minutes to do it. And she couldn't do it because it was a 3D, you had to stack it, and she couldn't do it. And at least the way the production was going, they had to stall for time for the rest of the, no, what happened? Oh no, that screwed up the episode. So they were expecting to end the episode on her victory, but because she failed, they had to go long because they had to go now do an exit interview with her, and so they had to push the exit interview and not do it on the live show. And then, as a consequence of her not coming back, now they don't have half of the next episode because she can't do like a triumphant return or anything. It's that kind of stuff. So you can sort of see especially because everybody that watches Big Brother knows the show intimately, even the production side of it, because they're all super fans at this point, because that's who's left. It's really clear to everyone when an unexpected thing happens to production that they have to deal with, because, yeah. And so like last night's live show, I think the live shows have been getting like increasingly more unreliable. And last night there was a bunch of swearing, which is not normal, but also they had an audio failure at the end where the house guests couldn't hear the Julie, the host. So Julie had to close the night without the house guests being able to hear her, which is, yeah, it was just like, it was like a perfect storm episode. I forgot where I was going with that. Anyway, it's yeah. The show is out of control though. The stuff that's, yeah. In the climate that we're in, where social justice is a priority, this show may not survive it just based on the fact that the people that are in the show are regular people, and when you have a camera on you for 24 hours a day, there are holes in the social justice tapestry, I guess we'll say. I'm not saying social justice is bad. I'm just saying that I think under a microscope, every person is going to break a lot more social justice rules than ideal. And unfortunately, there's an entire TV show about people on TV the whole time doing this. Yeah. So, I also decided just to watch as many of a certain type of space movie as I could. Boy, this is going to be a long episode, I can already tell. So one of my favorite movies all time is this movie Pandorum, which a guy wakes up with no memory. He's been in some sort of space sleep, and he wakes up on a ship, and there's aliens on the ship hunting him, and he knows he's a crew member, and he thinks he knows that he needs to find the rest of his crew and figure out what's wrong with the ship, because something clearly happened to the ship. And so it's kind of like Alien for our generation, but he's on a it's not a big reveal, but it's an ark. It's a ship carrying a bunch of people and a bunch of stuff in order to start a colony on a new planet. And so I tried to find as many ark stories as I could. On the new Netflix Lost in Space is an arc story, which is it counts. I very much like it for that reason. But so I watched Pandorum. I watched Passengers, which, oh man, that's such a like an empty movie. Like there's a way for that movie to have been, like Nerdwriter did a whole thing on, if you rearranged a couple things and you don't use the first 30 minutes where Chris Pratt is alone on Passengers, then it's not the story of a rapist, murderer, creep. It's who Jennifer Lawrence falls in love with. It's Jennifer Lawrence wakes up in a tragedy. So anyway, but the Passengers is funny. Passengers just cracks me up because the social buzz around it was like, Jennifer Lawrence did one for the girls. She's made more money than, she negotiated more money than Chris Pratt, who's a star, and she's a star, and she deserves it. This will be sort of like a feminist. This will go into the feminism canon for film, and then you watch the movie, and it's the opposite of feminism because it's basically Jennifer Lawrence is a sex vehicle in a story about a guy who's alone on a ship for his entire life, tragically. So So, but again, I don't blame anybody. I just think in the edit they made choices that I don't think told a proper story. I think that if they'd rearranged some stuff, they would have been able to tell a much more satisfying story. So Pandorum, Passengers. I watched the first half of Prometheus because there's no reason to watch the second half of Prometheus. I watched the first half of Alien Covenant because there's no reason to watch the second half of Alien Covenant. Did I watch anything else? I think that was just the 4. But I realized that there's only a handful of those kind of movies. I would put Sunshine in there and Solaris in there and 2001 kind of, but Kubrick is so completely out there that it's hard to attach a Kubrick movie with a regular type movie. So I figured out that there's only like 5, maybe 10 movies about a space ark. and none of them have been done very well. Pandorum just didn't do very well critically, even though it has a cult following. But I think Pandorum's the best out of the group. Passengers is just like a blockbuster dud, but very beautiful, very pretty. Hated the space logic in it, honestly. I thought it was real dumb. But yeah, very pretty ship. Event Horizon, I guess, is one of those movies, kind of. I couldn't bring myself to watch Event Horizon or Supernova or Sphere, or the Danny Boyle movie, Sunshine. I guess Sunshine counts as one of those. So yeah, so the wheels are turning about how to do that properly. I think Passengers, the premise was the closest, because it's like a luxury cruise ship that happens to be on its way to a planet. So I think that's the most interesting pitch. Just not very well done. Yeah, I'm sure I watched other stuff, but it doesn't really matter. Can't see Mission Impossible still. For whatever reason, the 4 AMC theaters within a reasonable distance to me, it's still blacked out on MoviePass, even though now a couple showings are available in non-AMC theaters. MoviePass is really bugging me. They keep they're making it worse. I got a note that I had to either agree or X out on my MoviePass app saying next pay period, which for me was yesterday, it's going to be $14.99 a month. Fine, I was prepared for that, but also you can only see 3 movies a month. Okay, so I checked. I'm averaging 7, so I'm not happy about that. But I'm also not on pace this month to see 7 movies, because most of the movies in theaters are blacked out. So I think technically the math works where I will only be able to see 3 movies a month on MoviePass. So we'll see what happens. I'm in a period now where I can't see a lot of movies anyway, just because I'm busy, but I'm on my way out with MoviePass. I thought I might outlast them. It's clear I won't now. Yeah, the AMC $30 a month thing is looking real nice. Three movies a week plus perks. It's definitely the better business model. I mean, it's a lot more money, but yeah. Anyway, writing tip. Seafoam. It was about free writing. I remember that. It was. Oh yeah. So this is a prompt for free writing. Free writing being just sitting down with a pen and paper and writing. This is my default. I kind of described this earlier, but you just so I take a character, usually a disenfranchised character, usually not a typical character, and set it in a world around whatever I'm thinking about. So usually it ends up being sci-fi because I'm thinking speculatively. But for example, the Me Too movement, I think I did a bunch of pages on this. Definitely not usable material because the Me Too movement is too hot. Definitely not designed to be written by a white straight guy, and also fast burn. I don't think even if this idea got properly fleshed out in time, the movement would still be what it is, because it's always evolving. So, but took a character who got accused of a thing and now has to make a choice. His innocence in this story is kind of not relevant, but he can either take everything on the chin and just collapse, or he can now defend himself. And so I chose that because that seems to be the darker decision, the decision that offers more story. and somehow I came up with the idea that, well, as soon as a guy who's accused of being a creep defends himself, society has deemed him a creep. Whether or not he's a creep, society has decided he's now a creep. And because, at least in the Me Too movement, it's an entire society of creeps. That's the whole reason this is happening. I don't think it's a far stretch to say that the other creeps would come out of the woodwork to help him now. And because of the Me Too movement, these creeps tend to be powerful and of a different time and place, and influential. So the sort of the sick joke in the writing prompt that I did was he never really became on the side of the creep, but he recognized how uphill of a battle it was in sort of the Me Too movement because of how entrenched and how powerful these creeps are. And just by being accused, he sort of defaulted into the same line as these creeps. And it was almost helpful to him. So real dark, real pessimistic, but anyway, so that's what I do. I usually take a character and I just see what happens in his life, like what is he up against? And in this one, he's up against an accusation. And it was not really about his opinion about it. It was really about the circumstances. Like he I think I did have him innocent, like in his own mind know he was innocent. But it didn't really matter because that didn't really affect his decision making. Because his decision making was based on being pursued by the Me Too movement, but also being sort of groomed and pursued by the creeps who are completely on a different level where they're not even bothered. The Me Too movement is annoying to them. So it was interesting. I do that a lot. Usually it's a person on a spaceship who has a point of view, but this time it was a lot more topical and a lot less evergreen, I'd say. Evergreen being the idea that this idea will last. So I'm not saying Me Too is going to die tomorrow, but I'm saying that just the way everything is being handled, especially in light of Chris Hardwick's exoneration, that it's hard to expect that the way things are going are going to continue to go this way. I think the Roseanne getting fired based on tweets was the beginning of the decline, not the beginning of the incline, because, it's at some point somebody's going to push back on this sort of rash, quick to judge firing stuff. I don't really know where I stand on any of this anymore because, you believe the innocent until you don't, but also the studios and people are now rapidly firing people without they're doing their due diligence initially. And the one example that we really have of them doing any version of due diligence, which seems like they, if nothing else, were incompetent or didn't do the due diligence, they just said they did. The one circumstance where due diligence was in play, the accused was fully exonerated for very unclear reasons. That doesn't help the cause. So it's messy. It's real messy. That's what I'm trying to say. It's real messy. Yeah. So we'll see what happens. But the version of the Me Too movement that we're in on August 10th, 2018 cannot last. It cannot be sustained. A lot of good is happening, but a lot of just too fast, I would say, too fast. But who knows? Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe the purge needs to continue, and maybe the quick firings need to keep happening, and a better class of person rises up through the ranks because of that. That's the ideal. So maybe that'll happen. It just seems sloppy to rapidly fire somebody because of the risk of having to walk that back. And now we have like a really good example of having to walk that back. And the bad guy in this story now has that as a motivator, where even if he knows he's going to get accused, he's like, we have the ability to walk it back. We can walk it back if we have, if it comes to that. We've seen it happen. So, yeah. Box office. I did okay. I got everything but the last one. So Mission Impossible, Christopher Robin, Spy Who Dumped Me, Mamma Mia 2, and I said Hotel Transylvania, but actually The Equalizer 2 beat it. So I got 4 out of 5. I feel okay with that. Mission Impossible, man. That's a blockbuster. I don't know what to tell you. Be nice if I could watch it. But, so this week, everybody's saying it's going to be The Meg, which is that basically the theater version of Sharknado. I don't think so. I think it's still going to be Mission Impossible. So I think it's going to be Mission Impossible, The Meg, Christopher Robin, Black Klansman, which I'm very excited to see, and Slender Man, which I don't have an opinion about, but I'm watching it because it's sort of the younger generation's version of Urban Legend or Scream or one of those. So if it does well, then we're probably going to see over the next 10 years a lot of Slender Man copies. So that'll be interesting. And it's, you know, the Babadook did pretty well, and the Babadook is basically Slender Man. So anyway, that's what I think. Writing tip. Oh, we did that. Recommends. I forgot to recommend last week because I was so flustered by the fact that MP4 cuts you off. So I'm going to use last week's, which are 2, I guess they're pilots. I don't think the second one. Okay, so they're a YouTuber that got incredibly famous and made a show. In the first example, they independently produced it themselves, or at least their company did it themselves, and that's Jake and Amir Fired. So Jake and Amir are the two guys in College Humor that argue, and one guy is a total creep and the other guy is the straight man, and it's very well written. It's very funny, and the writing is super good. But they shot a pilot called Jake and Amir Fired, and it doesn't work. It does not work. Because I don't think it has, I don't know. I do not know. I have a lot of theories why it doesn't work. I could probably do a whole video essay on why Jake and Amir Fired doesn't work, but it just doesn't work. It just comes off as grating and unfinished and weird, which is crazy because they continued making Jake and Amir after Jake and Amir Fired, and it was better than ever. It was so good. I'm losing my voice. Because they even did like multiple. They'll do like a four episode continued thing, and those are great. They did a double date one. They did one about Amir's girlfriend because Amir can't have girlfriends. The long form ones are great, but for whatever reason, Jake and Amir Fired, the TV pilot, just not good. And then the other one actually did quite well, and recently got announced it's not getting a second season on Netflix, which is Haters Back Off, which is Miranda Sings, which was never for me. I'm losing my voice. Miranda Sings was never for me, but I knew about it, and I found it grating and unfunny, and I'm not the audience. Clearly. It made it to Netflix. It got a season on Netflix, and I gotta say, the rest of the ensemble I really like. I really like her dad. I've seen him in everything. I love him. But the Miranda Sings character in the show Haters Back Off ruined it for me. So, but something to watch. Jake and Amir Fired and Haters Back Off. If you can find it, watch it. Just, to see, does it work? Does short form translated this way into long form work? And the answer with Jake and Amir Fired is no. And the answer for Haters Back Off is, for a lot of people, yeah. So, 30 minutes. All right, bye.